This is the Tallahassee Business Podcast, bringing you engaging conversations with influential members of the community that you need to know. This episode is brought to you by The Health Network. The Health Network is an innovative advertising platform with more than 30 digital monitors and almost a dozen different medical waiting rooms throughout Tallahassee. With a diverse mix of medical practices, The Health Network provides advertisers unmatched visibility to a highly engaged audience while directly connecting with target consumers through static and video ads. To learn how your business can effectively reach over 60,000 patients and guests per month, visit thnadvertising.com.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce podcast. My name is Corey Melton. I am Vice President of Membership and Talent Development here at the Chamber, and today my guest is Eddie Gonzalez-Loumiet from Ruvos. Eddie, would you just take a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about what you do and Ruvos?
Thanks, Corey. And I want to also thank the Chamber for having me. So I am the CEO of Ruvos, which is a national health IT company. We're founded and headquartered in Tallahassee, Florida, and we're not going anywhere. And we have been, as folks can imagine, we have been extremely busy over the last 2 years to try to do our small part in the COVID response and, of course, the COVID recovery.
So, Eddie, how did Ruvos, kind of give us the background of Ruvos and how you got started and why Tallahassee?
Great question. So almost 18 years ago, which is pretty remarkable because most small businesses last only a handful of years. It hasn't been a smooth ride those 18 years, but for the most part, we're proud of celebrating 18 years this year. Our first opportunity was with the Florida Department of Health. I always like to remind folks that the state of Florida is the 15th largest economy on the planet, which means the Florida Department of Health has a huge role to play across the entire state. And so back in 2004, they came to us and said, hey, we have 67 counties, and each one has their own database or their own silo of data. And they asked us to create interoperability or data exchange between the counties. And so, our hard work and I guess good work here in Tallahassee specifically and across the state of Florida caught the attention of other jurisdictions, other states, and also caught the attention of national nonprofits and federal agencies like the CDC.
Awesome. So you've been doing with the Department of Health. So we talk about GovTech in Tallahassee. Are there other companies that are working with other state agencies locally?
Absolutely. There are, and we're learning more and more, and I'm sure we'll get to that. There are dozens and dozens of organizations in town that work with agencies, really primarily focused on technology. Whether you believe it or not, the state of Florida has some of the most advanced technology from a GovTech perspective. And many of the organizations, and people may be surprised, many of the organizations that are working with the different agencies here across the state, they're actually small businesses. And so the state of Florida has a pretty robust contracting mechanism, procurement mechanism, which has hundreds of businesses, and many of them are small businesses. So you can be a small business and you can have the opportunity of working with a large agency, for example. So there's quite a few in town, and some specialize on the Bureau of Prisons. Some specialize on children and families. And in our case, of course, we specialize in public health and public health technology.
That's real interesting because people do talk about, or you hear often that there isn't that much technology in Tallahassee, but what you have found to be true is there actually is. And I think a large part of that is because it's really not a consumer-based technology company. It's more, B2B, business to business, or business to government. So tell us a little bit about Launch Tally.
Okay, great. No, that's a great question. So a little bit about Launch Tally. First, I have to go back a few years and share the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce's initiative, of course, backed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, called Talent Pipeline Management. And Talent Pipeline Management couldn't have been more timely. This initiative was really started and was increase in participation during COVID because it focused on talent, it focused on workforce and workforce development, and really the pipeline of getting folks. It focused on education and retention, which are all topics that every company, whether you're doing well during the pandemic or unfortunately struggling during the pandemic, those are topics you're dealing with. And it started off with a group of technologists. Some own or operate large tech companies here in town, and some are sole proprietors, and they may be a one-person shop. And so more and more we would get together, and there was always an agenda with different topics, and we had some exercises where we looked at job positions that were in demand, in partnership with the universities, in partnership with K through 12, and different community-based organizations. We realized that there really wasn't a one-stop shop where Eddie Gonzalez can find a list of all the technology companies in town. We're very good as a community to share statistics and data, like we have X number of trails or parks, we have X number of art galleries, and X number of restaurants, X number of hospitals and providers and physicians. Well, what is that number when it comes to technology? Right. And not only the technology companies, but startups. What does that number look like? Mature companies like, I guess, Ruvos, that's been around for 18 years. And what about those folks that are one person shop, right? And are still doing some amazing technology work. And those people that may work for a large multinational, but due to the distributed workforce situation we're experiencing, happen to reside in Tallahassee, but their headquarters are in Silicon Valley. And then lastly, which I think is a fascinating part, which we have a lot of here in Tallahassee, are the service organizations like the Chamber, like OEV, like Taltech, like DOMI, and there's another dozen, the universities, for example, that support the technology companies from an operational perspective, from a publicity perspective, from education and training. And that sometimes is even more important than the actual technology companies. So with Launch Tally, not only are we creating this launch pad or portal, which is kind of like a yellow pages for tech, okay, in town, a one-stop shop, but we're also trying to create a movement, right? And we're also trying to not just be lip service. We want something to grow organically. We want people to be proud of wearing that Launch Tally shirt or Launch Tally hat. And so we're very excited about our event to lift off Launch Tally, which is going to be March 23rd at the FSU Conference Center. And thanks to many supporters, we were able to turn this around and plan this in less than 2 months. And one of the things that we would love to, in addition to great speakers and getting people together to collaborate and kind of put competition to the side and talk about how we can put Tallahassee the map. But one of the things that we also look forward to sharing is the map of the technology ecosystem in Tallahassee, right? We know that there's universities out there. We know there's a startup scene, right? And we're trying to gather that data. Now, as we have more and more data, how do those organizations work together? So if you picture a map, like a trail map, if you go hiking, for example, or if you picture a subway map, which have all of these different lines and integration points. Well, imagine if we had something like that for technology. So if you're a business out of New York State, or if you're an individual looking for a job in North Florida, and you wanted to know what technology looks like in this area, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to answer that question. And Launch Tally, which was born through TPM, is just one of many efforts that are just organically happening, which is very exciting.
I think that's fantastic, because not only does it give the businesses here in Tallahassee and their employees, I mean, I think just the employees being aware of the other technology employees in town, I mean, that's powerful. Or if you're trying to recruit someone, for them to know that they're coming to a place with 70 or 80 other technical companies, that's a big selling point for our community. So for businesses that are listening, how is it that you're hoping they can either take advantage of this or be involved with it? Kind of what is the bigger picture for the business community?
Great question. Number one, to ask themselves, are they a technology company? And Heidi Otway mentioned something, and she said, Eddie, defining technology is important throughout this movement. And I think that's right. We have a strong marketing and branding and public relations industry here in town. Well, guess what? They use technology. We have folks in our town that may not consider themselves a technology organization, but what we hope through the Launch Tally initiative, through our meetings, through TPM and the chamber, that folks can maybe identify themselves as a technology company, which is pretty neat. I also want folks to understand that they're not alone. They may be a small business that has been running, a small shop for 10, 15 years, or they may be a startup with an idea that's working through Domi. And so I think creating not only the online directory, but creating this ecosystem where you can pick up the phone and call someone down the street for advice, for partnership opportunities, or, hey, I heard you have a need. Maybe I can fill that need for you. And then lastly, we hear a lot about some major cities and what they call technology hubs across the state and across the nation. Okay. And there's no reason why on those lists, those national lists of tech hubs around the nation, there's no reason why in a few years or sooner, Tallahassee can be on that list. But in order for us to get on that list, which, by the way, will help all the technology folks in town and will also help, in my opinion, I think many folks' opinions, the overall economic strength of our community. But there's no reason why we can't be on that top 10, top 15, top 20 list in town. So there's a bunch of momentum going on. The media is picking up this momentum. This is not lip service. These are folks that are working day in and day out to make something happen. And March 23rd is just that first meeting, right? That first event to lift off into something bigger. And hopefully the organic momentum will continue. And then on the next podcast, we can give you more data on really the true count of technology companies, which, Corey, to be honest with you, could be close to 150 companies. We'll see.
I don't doubt it one bit. One item on the agenda that if you'll talk a little bit more about that, I know that at the end of the event on the 23rd, you've got some actionable items there, so that it's not just to come and listen, not even just a networking, but kind of what are you hoping to get out of that last piece from the participants there? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think there's going to be a great opportunity to learn from other organizations, other people in the room. We're going to have a wonderful facilitator there helping us marshal through the questions. But I would love for folks to leave there with kind of this feeling in their gut that, you know what, I can do more than what I'm doing. And to a certain extent, me as a resident of this community, a technology owner, business owner, I sort of have a responsibility to be there for others. I sort of have a responsibility maybe for the common good, for the overall ecosystem of technology here in Tallahassee. And so going away with some homework, right? Going away with not only business cards from other folks that you've met, but action items on, for example, let's schedule a coffee next week at Lucky Go to talk about how both our companies can work together. Or let's schedule a meeting where I can help you because you've been struggling due to the situation with the pandemic. And then seeing how hopefully organically folks will come together and join their conference calls with their customers and say, I am XYZ company from Tallahassee. And that's one of the things, Corey, that we do, as you know, at Ruvos. When we start off conference calls, we like to say, hi, I'm Eddie Gonzalez from Ruvos, located in Tallahassee. Why? Because we're proud. And we feel we have a responsibility to represent. But we're only one company. Imagine if you have all 150 companies potentially, and the service providers, and the community leaders together with that same message. I think that can be powerful, really, really powerful. I'm hoping to see momentum, of course, post March 23rd as well.
Fantastic. Well, Eddie, one more time, give us the details of the event and maybe the website or where everyone can go to register.
Awesome. So launchtally.com. There are a few buttons that you can click when you go to that website. You can register for the event. By the way, it's a free event. There'll be some merchandise. There'll be some great speakers. There's going to be breakfast at the FSU Conference Center. Starts at 8 a.m. on March 23rd. Also on launchtally.com, you can also sign up for our Launchpad or that online directory or yellow pages. And you as an individual can register. And you can also register your company. And that'll also allow other folks from all around the world to be able to look at you on a list of technology companies in town. And so we're super excited. We want it to be standing room only, March 23rd, 8 a.m. at the FSU Conference Center.
Eddie, thank you so much for sharing all this with us today. We look forward to hearing more from you after the event. And if anyone has any questions, again, this is Eddie from Ruvos. You can reach out to Eddie directly, or you can reach us at the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. Thank you again.
Thank you.